Was Roman Empire divided? Yes. It got to a time that the empire became so large that it couldn't be controlled. The emperor at that time, in about 245 AD, Diocletian, ruling from the west, came up from Rome and said, we have to divide this Roman Empire into two parts. So we now have the Eastern and the Western Empire rule. And they continue ruling from the Rome, which was the center, the western part. That's why we have the Rome. But that was not all. After so many years, the empire was further divided by 10 barbarian tribes into 10 different countries, which made up the European nations. And these tribes are the Alemanni, the Burgundians, Franks, Lombards, Saxons, the Suevi, Visigoths, Heruli, Ostrogoths, and the Vandals. These are the 10 tribes, the barbarian tribes, that later divided the land of Europe from 2 to 10 countries. And this happened between 351 AD to 476 AD. And they were divided. And that was how it all started. So the Roman Empire was further divided into 10 different countries, which up to today are still there, except for 3 that was cut off. We're going to talk about that one in the book of Daniel chapter 7. So that was how it was. But something happened. The Bible tells us that there was a fruit of partly clay and partly iron joined together. And at the fruit region, that was where the division came. We have division, clay, iron. Then we now have another 10 toes down there in that place, which represent the 10 countries of the European nation. But so in verse 43 of Daniel chapter 2, it reads in the second part of it, it said, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. That was prophecy. The Lord says, even if these people are divided, the prophecy was that no matter how they try, they can never come back as one. They cannot become one Roman Empire, because it has been divided, and that is all. Do people try to reunite the land, the city, the country of Europe to get to Europe together? Yeah. So many leaders tried. King Charlemagne tried. He did all he could, but it was not successful. King Charles V tried. He did everything, but it never worked. Louis XIV tried. Napoleon tried his best. The last person was Hitler, Germany. In fact, his own led to serious war. He was one that persecuted the Israelites very, very well. At the end of the day, he committed suicide. It never worked. Why? Because the Bible says in that book of Daniel chapter 2 verse 43 that they can never agree. They can never come together as one nation anymore. So you see, the prophecy that came out 500 years, about 2,500 years ago, still lives up to today. What about the area of the feet of clay? What did the Bible say of clay? What do we know about clay? Now, let us talk a little about clay. In Jeremiah 8 verse 1 to 6, the Bible told Prophet Isaiah, the Lord told Prophet Isaiah, said, go to the house of the potter and you see what is happening there. Jeremiah got there and found that this man was molding pots with his hands, using clay to mold an object. And when he molds that object, if it wasn't the pattern that he wanted, he would destroy it and remold. He destroys and removes. God told him and said, that is my relationship with the children of Israel. I am the potter. They are the clay. I mold them to my pattern. If it is not the pattern that I want, I break it down, I remove them again. In Isaiah, it said, we are the clay and God is the potter. That means the Old Testament church, the children of Israel, they are clay and God is the potter. Look at the creation of man in Genesis chapter 2 verse 7. God made man out of the dust of the air. In the Hebrew text, that word dust is translated as clay. After molding man, he breathed into him. That breath is translated wind or spirit. Look at how the church was formed. When you look at the statue, it talks about the clay at the feet. That means it's at the end of the time, the latter part. That means it wasn't talking about the Old Testament church. It was talking about the Christians, New Testament church. Remember, it was in the time of Caesar the Augustus that Jesus was born. That was the Roman Empire. Jesus came into life at the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire under Caesar the Augustus. Jesus was crucified by the Roman soldiers. At the death and resurrection of Jesus, after his ascension, the church was formed and the Papa. The Bible tells us that he entered into them as a mighty rushing wind. He came upon them as cloven tongues of fire. And that day the church was given birth to. Israel itself was displaced in AD 70. Jesus died in AD 33. And that was how it began. Christianity had its and there was problem. Why the Romans were persecuting the Christians? Because Christianity was a strange religion and they were the one in charge. It was the children of Israel that knew whether there was anything they called Jesus. But the Roman Empire never knew. They were pagan religion. Both the Babylonian were pagan religions, the Greece were pagan religion, the Medo-Persia were pagan religion. At that time, there were great persecutions of the church. The Christians were being persecuted. The disciples of Jesus were all killed. And every one of them, even Apostle Paul was exiled to Patmos. In that place, that was where he wrote the book of Revelation. Now, everything came and there was great slaughter of the church. When little thing happens, they will blame the church because they are worshipping a strange God. Because they never knew anything about God. Now, it now got a time. A man called Constantine the Great was fighting a battle from the north, coming down all the way from France, and was conquering and was conquering and was conquering. He was fighting to win and become the new emperor. And when it got to the point, the battle became so strong, became very, very tense. I never knew what to do. The Roman soldiers were so powerful. The soldiers couldn't meet up. But one day, he saw a revelation, and a cross was shown him. And an angel told him that in that cross, he shall conquer. And when he heard that, he held on to that very statement, and he told his people that I saw a revelation, and I was shown a cross, and that means the God of the Christians wants to fight this battle for us. He believed that in that cross they must conquer. So what did he do? He came up and began, as a sign that he believed in what he saw, he began to put the sign of the cross upon every of their weapons, upon their swords, upon the shields, upon their helmets, upon their belts. He puts upon it the sign of the cross, believing that they must win. And really, he said in his heart that if we conquer by the sign of the cross, I am going to worship the God of the Christians, and eventually he conquered. He became the new emperor. In 306 AD, Constantine became the conqueror, the emperor of Rome. So when Constantine came in and became the new king, the new emperor, he changed all this. From being persecuted to becoming important in the society. The church, the Christian now began to hold important positions. They were in politics. They were the ones that are controlling the political power in Rome. They were the ones that were occupying great positions. They were the ones that are judges. They are made judges under Constantine the Great. So anyone who wished to attain a very important height in the land of, in the Roman kingdom, had no choice. The only option he has is to become a Christian. And this made so many of the Roman elites, they came into the church. They came into the church. But when they came in, they did not leave their tradition. They did not drop their idols. They came in with everything. So they were accepted into the church with their paganism. So you see, when he says that the iron mixed with the clay here is the church of God, the Christians. Now the people joining Christians with their pagan religion, mixing up together, claiming to be Christians. So it was so difficult. So when they came with their idols. Some of these idols, though they renamed some of their statues, like the statue of Jupiter was renamed Peter, Hermes was renamed Jesus, the Good Shepherd, Madonna with a baby, they renamed Mary with baby Jesus. And they all were all in that place, practicing the same Roman tradition, the same Roman custom, the same thing. But it wasn't working well, because they are mixing idolatry with Christianity. So Constantine looked at it and said, well, why should we be worshipping on Saturday, which was the Sabbath? He said the best thing was, since Sunday, in the whole of Rome and Empire, the day they used to worship the god of the sun. So what they did was to change it from Sabbath. Let us use Sabbath to fast, then we use Sunday to rest. So Sunday was declared public holiday of rest, so that they use it to worship the God of the Christians. Then that was how it continued. Then later, the Bishop of Rome was made the head of all churches. Constantine moved from the West Rome and went to the eastern part, called the Constantinople, to be ruling from there. And right there, the Bishop of Rome became the head. Later on, in about 500 AD, 551 AD, the Roman Empire, one of the emperor of Rome, Justinian, came up and gave the Bishop of Rome the political, the civil, and also the ecclesiastical power. That means the Bishop of Rome has all power. He controls everything. He interprets the Bible. He gives whatever they want. And whatever he says is the final. But idols, what agreement do light have with darkness? It never worked. Several years after, the likes of Martin Luther the King and the rest of them came up, and they began to interpret the Bible. They realized that what they have been taught are wrong, and problems started. And that was what gave birth to the Reformation of the church. So they cannot join together. Going back to that same book of Daniel 43, Daniel 2 verse 43, it says, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with merry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. I want you to think about it. We need to continue from there. The papacy the Bishop of Rome. What are the things? Who actually, you see, we find out in the continuation of this revelation when it was revealed to Daniel in another form in the book of Daniel chapter 7. See you there.